Okay, we'll have another online session from Marek and Marcin. Unfortunately, they cannot be here again for travel restrictions. We'll have a very brief Q&A if time allows.
Hello everyone, my name is Marek Zmysłowski, and today I have a pleasure to give you a presentation about penetration testing management and the problems that you can meet with that in the large corporations. Together with me, we have Marcin Grzesiak today, who was also one of the co-author of the presentation. The third person that I would like to present is Piotr Bazydło. He is also the co-author of this presentation. All three of us working together in the Standard Chartered Bank. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us today. Let's start from the beginning, how everything started. So in 2019, Standard Chartered started to build an international penetration testing team. Today, we grow up to almost 30 pen testers that came from different environment, different companies, different sectors like financial, consulting, critical infrastructure. Everything that gave an opportunity to us to exchange our experience, discuss, understand what are the different approaches of penetration testing in different companies. So based on that experience, we create this presentation to you, and we would like to show and present you our thoughts or our point of view. Of course, everything in this presentation is our own. It is not view or opinion of our employer. Let's start with the few definitions. First definition is penetration testing. So penetration testing is authorized, systematic, and in-depth evaluation process of a testing system, networks, and applications to find security vulnerabilities that attacker can exploit. Inside this process, we have different parts like gathering information, like identification of possible entries, attempting to break, and also important part of penetration testing is reporting. Another three definitions that I would like to show you here, because it's important during this presentation to understand exactly what we are talking about and how we define those three words. Normally people use it without seeing the difference, but it's very important to understand that. So bug, it's an error, flaw or fault in a computer program or system that causes incorrect or unexpected results, or to behave in unintended way. Normally the bug is located in a source code or the configuration. Vulnerability, however, is weakness that can be exploited by an attacker to get into the system. The finding we will call the description of the vulnerability in the report. This slide shows very important thing to be understandable by not only by the pen tester, because most of the pen testers understand it, but by management. What is the relation between bug and a vulnerability? So pen tester or attacker do not find bugs. They find vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities are caused by a bug. However, the pen tester normally, when they are doing black box or gray box, they do not find bugs. This is very important, because sometimes people think that vulnerability is exactly the same. No, vulnerability is a result of the bug that is used by an attacker. Not every bug in the system causes a vulnerability. In this presentation, we would like to show you what kind of problems you can meet when you performing this kind of penetration testing in large companies. Why we use word large? It is important because we are not talking about the companies that have a 1, 2, or 3 systems that are tested once per 5 years and they see one report. We are talking about the companies that has hundreds of systems that they are connected. They perform hundreds of penetration testing that sometimes are related. Most often they are related to themselves and somehow connected. The bugs can be revealed in a different part of the organizations, and there are different teams that are handling this. Okay, 2 more definitions. Normally they are used almost the same, in the same manner. However, it is very important to understand what is exact difference. Where application is the smallest undivided part. A single URL doesn't mean that it's a single application, right? Scope, however, is something that is defined for a pen test, right? Before we start the pen test, we define the scope. Inside the scope, there can be one application, there can be multiple applications, but there can be only a half of application. The pen tester doesn't know that, but from the management perspective, it's very important. Here's an example. We have banking application, right, that we can log in, check our accounts, check our balance, etc. Inside this application, inside the scope, right, we have www.domain.com, right, and we have 2 branches. There is branch called retail for retail customers, and there is a branch corpo for corporate clients. And let's assume that these are 2 different applications because the functionality is different. So those two applications are managed and developed by different teams, right? So as you can see on the pictures, we have 3 different applications. We have main domain, right, which is managed by one team. We have branch retail, which is managed by a second team, and we have a branch corpo that is managed by third team. And we will use it this definition later. When we are talking about the penetration testing, there's something like completeness. I would like to use this word to present different approaches to the penetration testing that has some strong implication in the further process. We are talking about complete with application coverage, complete with vulnerability coverage, and not complete. When penetration testing is complete, of course, this is just a definition, so it's usually impossible to perform. There is no way the penetration tester will test whole the application with all possible vulnerabilities, with all possible endpoints. The good thing in this type of pen testing is that a new report cross all vulnerabilities, right? If we have a previous report and we have some vulnerabilities and we want to retest it, there is no need to do that. The complete penetration testing means that all vulnerability must be fixed or must be found. The second very important thing here is that you can divide those pen tests. So if we tested if we tested one URL that contains 2 different applications, we know that we tested every of this application also as a complete. Complete with application coverage. Here the pen tester is focusing to go through every piece of the application, right? So he tries to visit every URL, go to every single endpoint and try to do that. It's difficult to achieve when you have a black box or gray box testing, because some endpoints may be available only with some business functionality, or can go through especially through special business process that we sometimes do not know, or we don't know how to run. Complete with vulnerability coverage. In this type of testing, the pen tester is focusing to test, let's say, all the vulnerabilities. I don't know, there is a list, for example, OWASP top 10, when every single type of vulnerability is checked inside the application, and the pen tester try to identify in which part of the application this kind of vulnerability can be found. The last type is, of course, not completed at all. This means that the application was not fully tested, in the sense that not every endpoint was visited and not every possible vulnerability was found. The disadvantage of this is it cannot be divided. So if we test the www.domain.com, then we cannot say that we also test the retail branch, for example. Okay, so we know that complete pen test is not possible, so we need to choose something in the middle. What are advantages and disadvantages of application coverage or the vulnerability coverage? Right? If we move more if the pen tester is moving more into the application coverage, right? Then it helps to find bugs in bigger scope. It also helps the development team to fix those, because they do not need find the issues. The more issues we add them, the more places when the issues are found, the easier for them to fix. However, the vulnerabilities that are detected are simpler in the sense that it takes less time to identify vulnerability. What are the disadvantages of this approach? That high impact vulnerabilities can be. Some of the vulnerabilities are related to, for example, business logic, and they are very difficult to identify and required a lot of time. And the pen tester in this type of testing may skip this part. Also, it is a problem sometimes without having a documentation, when we are don't understand where the other endpoints can be found. If the pen tester is moving into vulnerability coverage, right, the advantage of it is it's cover more types of vulnerabilities, and also it's a kind of time saver, right? One found vulnerability because that the pen tester is moving to a different one. For example, cross-site scripting, right? If pen tester, when I was a pen tester, when I found XSS, I haven't gone through whole the application finding XSSs in every possible places. I just reported this one and have a proof that this problem exists, so I could move trying to find different types of vulnerabilities. The disadvantage of this is that the developers or the engineers or the person who is responsible for these applications tend to fix only the bugs that are mentioned, only the bugs that are related to the findings, right? To the vulnerabilities in the report. If we say, okay, this parameter was vulnerable, they will not try to find a bug, global bug in the application, but they will try to fix only this parameter, so it is not shown later during the retest. The second disadvantage is that if inside the scope there are different applications, right? So then different teams may say, okay, it's not problem in our application, it's problem in the other application. So what we need to fix? I will show this in a moment. How the completeness is when we're talking about black, gray, or white box testing, right? So with the black and gray box testing, the completeness is impossible to achieve, almost impossible to achieve. We don't know how the application is exactly built and where can be hidden points. However, full white box penetration testing is very time consuming and sometimes not feasible to perform. Of course, in the perfect world, the white box would be the best. However, this is something that is not achievable, I think, in any organization. So let's get back to this example I showed previously, where we have a retail and corpo branch. Okay, so we have found, the pen tester found a vulnerability, cross-site scripting inside the retail application, right? Here is an example. The question is, what with the corpo branch? Depends on the different type of completeness. We can say different things. If the pen test was complete, then the link is safe, right? If the link was not safe, then we should report that. So we are good with that. Complete in application coverage. Well, it's undefined. We know that the link was tested. We know that penetration tester was there, but we don't know if he tested this against XSS or not. Complete in vulnerability coverage. It's also undefined. Right? The link might be tested, but maybe not against the XSS, so we do not know about this anything. Not completed, then it's undefined. We do not know anything about this link. So we are approaching to the point that I would like to express that it is very important for people that manage penetration testing to understand this this completeness, right? Because later, when the pen test is done, there is a report, and you need to share the report with someone who will be responsible for that, right? If we send to both teams the report into the retail and into the corpo, right? We need to explain that this is only if the pen test is not completed, right? We need to, if the pen test is not complete, we need to explain that this is an example vulnerability described in the report. Please check if similar problem exists in your branch. If not, then you are fine. If exists, then you need to fix it. Okay. This was my part. Thank you very much. And right now, moving to Marcin. Marcin, continue.
Okay. Thank you, Marek. I will continue on this. So let's talk about sharing previous reports to the penetration tester. Like if you have previous 5 reports or previous year of reports, you can share it to the pen tester when another time for a pen test comes. On one hand, you can give all of these reports and tell the pen tester to read this, to try to replicate these vulnerabilities and put it in the report if they still exist. On the other hand, it might be difficult because the number of vulnerabilities might be quite large after some time. Question is if getting just the last report is enough, if the report was done in the same manner so that it should contain all of the vulnerabilities from the past or not. Was it for the full scope of the application or only for some part of this? Is the vulnerability identified in the same place? Does it work in the same way or not? Is it the same vulnerability or maybe it's a different vulnerability? It's sometimes hard to assess. So now about security controls. Security controls are just portions of security testing targeted for different kinds of testing. For example, penetration tests like security code review, code scanning, vulnerability scanning. You can have a requirement to put some controls or all of them. And the question is, how are they cooperating with each other? If they are, maybe they can benefit from each other. Should they be put all at the same time, or maybe one by one in a specified order? So for example, you can apply all of them at the same time, and they will not see the results of each other. Penetration testing will not benefit from, for example, automated scanning or code scanning because the results will not be there. On the other hand, you can put them in the order, and the penetration test here at the end of the process can actually see the results from code scanning or automated scanning of the infrastructure, and it might be a clue to exploit some kind of vulnerability, because it's always about timing. You just have a specified time frame for the pen test, and it's not always possible to check everything. If you just have a foothold about the vulnerability, sometimes it's better to have some kind of report that says, okay, there is some kind of insecure deserialization, and this is this piece of code, it's done in this way. And if you know that there is some issue with deserialization, you can just go to the report and check it. And it will give you a clue of how to exploit it, instead of wasting time for checking all of the possibilities and maybe missing the right one, just like that. So the advantages of putting all the controls at the same time is, of course, saving time. Saving time of the application owners or someone who is, for example, waiting for the release date. But it may also cause the duplicate work within the security teams because, for example, a penetration test is not aware if automated scanning was executed or not, so they execute all the checks of TLS configuration, etc. Of course, they will not also benefit from any previous controls that happened because they didn't, for example, happen yet. If you apply all the controls control and, for example, then pass the application for another control, like fixing the vulnerabilities from some automated scans before going for a pen test, might be beneficial because pen test will not focus on low-hanging fruits and may focus on more complex vulnerabilities. Now about the environments. This is tricky because maybe sometimes it's worth to test on production, as strange as it sounds. But let's look at the differences. Like, the attacker will most probably always target the production environment. So this one is the most accurate to be tested. On the other hand, it's also the most dangerous because you may just break it. Penetration testing is the process of forcing the system to act in a way it was not designed to work. So it may just break. It may go down. It may cause an impact on integrity of the data in the system. Especially, for example, if you use like automated tools for scanning and you will make some kind of requests that will erase the data accidentally. If you are not sure how the automated tools work, maybe it's worth not to use them on a production environment. Also, the accounts on the production systems, well, you have like an online shop on the production, you can just register an account, but how about buying something, making a payment for this? Should it be with real money, or maybe it should be some kind of mocked process? If it's mocked, then you have like a mocked process in production. Looks strange. Non-production environment, on the other hand, well, this one may just differ from production because this is a test environment. It may have a different configuration. It may have a different code base even. Maybe some features are already deployed on the test environment and are not yet deployed on production. Depending on the SDLC process, maybe some features will never be deployed, promoted from test environment to production because of some gaps in this process. Still fixing stuff on non-production environment is much easier because it does not follow so strict rules of change management as the production system, at least usually. You can have any accounts, you can have like test money to spend, etc. And there is no problem about this. There's no such risk of breaking the environment. Well, maybe the risk is the same, but the impact is not, because it will not impact your operations. So for example, one of the approach that can be done is testing the application on non-production environment. Then after go live, you can just test the infrastructure on the production. And assuming the application is exactly the same, that your change management and SDLC process are so good that you just assume that the application is the same. Some examples, you can just have some specific processes, combination of discounts, some specific products that are for some reason not available or not configured on test environment, so that during the penetration test you will not be able to trigger some kind of processes, so you will not test some part of the application. You may have some dependencies like a warehouse, for example. On test environment, it will always return that you just have some kind of products in your warehouse, whereas on production, it will not work like that. Mobile applications may also differ between production and non-production builds. They may have like increased log verbosity, disabled certificate pinning, and you will have it reported during the test, whereas it's a false positive because the production application does not behave in this way. Now about retesting. Well, the question is, where is this border? Should we actually only test this particular vulnerability that was presented in the report in the exactly the same way? Or maybe we should also look around and see if there are any other ways to exploit this vulnerability, or if there are any other vulnerabilities around this one. Maybe the fix that was implemented actually introduces another vulnerability. Or maybe something was just partially fixed. What does it actually mean? It may mean that, okay, XSS was fixed in a way that does not allow you to inject JavaScript, but still you can inject some HTML, so you have like HTML injection. Is it a separate vulnerability, or it's just not fixed the previous one? And what about the situation when this part of the application is no longer available? It was either removed or disabled, and you cannot actually confirm that it's fixed. Is it like fixed, or it's just not applicable now? And about scheduling retests, so there's always this dilemma of having a long schedule of pen tests, and then the retest comes. So someone comes and says, okay, I need a retest for my set of vulnerabilities that you have identified last month. And how should we handle this? Should we have an SLA for this, like 2 weeks for a retest, and we just have to find a slot for this? Or maybe we can approach in an ad hoc manner and perform this retest in parallel with current penetration tests. So a pen tester can, for example, spend a few hours of the test that is assigned to them now in order to retest another vulnerabilities in another system. There is a misconception that we have identified during creating this presentation and talking to our colleagues. This is the thing that penetration testing doesn't actually find bugs, it finds vulnerabilities. So you cannot confirm with the penetration test that the bug was fixed. You can just confirm that the vulnerability was. So something about change management itself. Well, it may happen that you test something on test environment, you validate the fix for the vulnerability, and what happens next is, okay, you say it was fixed. You mark in some kind of register that this vulnerability is fixed, and it never arrives to the production. For whatever reason, or the reason that somebody didn't actually promote this branch in the code, or someone didn't allow this promotion because the fix was actually breaking some other functionalities in the application, and it was not identified before the pen test. And now the fix was rolled back, and no one ever will look at this again. And how about, just even if you have a change request for the production, it may also happen that the same situation may happen on production. You just deploy the fix and you roll back because something was broken on production. And this fix never arrives on the production for the second time, even if it was not the issue caused by this particular fix. So this is about having good change management around this to ensure that all the fixes for the vulnerabilities will always arrive to the production. Scoping is also something very interesting because if you have many systems with many dependencies, like for example, single sign-on. If your application uses single sign-on, should you actually test the single sign-on as well? Or maybe it should have a separate penetration test. How about penetration testing the integration between single sign-on and the applications? Because you cannot test it without having an application. If you test them separately, you will not have a full view. How about the vulnerabilities of third parties? How about the vulnerabilities that were identified in a different application, like for example SSO by accident, but are not in scope? So should you actually report them, or maybe include them as informational, or maybe issue some kind of separate vulnerability notice? Whatever is needed. Or maybe just ignore them and wait for the test for this specific component. And about the limitations, it's also important to define the limitations if they exist, but also to put them in the report so that everyone who actually reads this, after all, have a clear view of what was not tested and why. Because, for example, you cannot buy something because you didn't have money for this, or you were told not to do any money transfer, and that this was a business requirement for the pen test. Or maybe something was inaccessible, or whatever reason. Maybe something was descoped during the pen test. So it also has to be put in the limitation sections. And about reporting, should you actually report a vulnerability as granular as possible to make sure that all of the vulnerabilities are detailedly explained, and maybe it will be also easier to the application team to fix it, like having TLS 1.0 enabled and using a self-signed certificate might be fixed in two different moments. Like one is TLS configuration, a second one is having a self-signed certificate, so you have to just issue a new one with an authorized certificate authority. So on the other hand, you can group all of these vulnerabilities into one and say, okay, you have SSL issues, and this is the list of issues. Well, the disadvantage of this approach is that you will never close this finding until all of the issues are fixed. So you will get partially fixed each time they come and fix only one of this. The advantage is that you have like less vulnerabilities in the report, less work for the pen tester, and in terms of statistics, it also looks that you have like one vulnerability, not 5. It depends on how do you want to approach this. About time for the penetration test. Well, you always have a set of man days to actually perform this penetration test. So what happens if you find a complex vulnerability and dive into this? And it's later on you're like in the middle of the test and you realize that, okay, I actually didn't check the number of things that I'm supposed to check. What now? The time can be also consumed by some complex protocols, algorithms, cryptography that was used in the application, and to understand this, the complex architecture, or even detecting all of the endpoints that are in scope. For example, you have like a server with 150 web servers running. So if you just want to discover content on every of these web servers, you will actually need quite a lot of time to do this. One of the ways to handle this is to make a gray box, white box testing so that you are actually sure of what is running inside. And you can prepare for this and better estimate the pen test. So having less time is, well, the advantage is that you can reduce the cost of single penetration test, but on the other hand, you have to perform more tests to be accurate. And also some vulnerabilities might be missed. On the other hand, if you have more time, you can find more complex vulnerabilities. They will be more interesting. Most probably, they will have also more impact. And also, you have to decrease the number of tests performed, and it means increasing the cost of single penetration test because it usually stays strict with the time. About internal evidencing and methodologies, well, sometimes someone will say it's good because now every pen tester knows what to do and will always check the set of controls regarding the application or this infrastructure. On the other hand, it's also time consuming because you have to do this each time, even if you know it's not actually needed, because from your experience, from your common sense, you know there is no point in checking like running content discovery on the API endpoints, for example. It also sometimes kills creativity because, you know, pen testers focus on doing the checklist or doing the list of activities that are supposed to be done and deliver evidences instead of actually thinking what are the correct attack vectors for this application, and that might be actually beneficial. So what is the actual correct approach for this? Well, if you have like high number of endpoints, or the application have high complexity, or have very uncommon technology, or for whatever reason will have some kind of factors that will increase the estimation, then having a complex methodology will cause that it will not be fulfilled in the first approach. It might be complete in the second approach or even in a third one. So it's always quite different to decide which is the correct approach for this. There are many other topics that could be discussed here, but we don't have time for this. So let me conclude. Well, first thing is that a successful penetration test is not only the person that will actually conduct this test, it also depends on how application team approach to the testing and if they actually prepare the environment, etc., if they tell you how it works. The outcome of the penetration test is actually well, the mixture of scope and size definition and many other factors that will actually result in the final set of findings. The application team can add the value to the penetration test, but can also significantly reduce the meaning by, questioning every vulnerability and saying it's not actually applicable. And the one that is also important, that the penetration test is based on creativity. So it's hard to close it with a set of checks and methodologies or whatever, however you call it, which are quite typical in large companies because everything has to be repeatable, auditable, etc. Okay, this is it. Thank you. And if you have some questions, then you can ask them.